There we go.
Did you lose it?
For his.
Keep talking.
I think it's this one.
Hello? Correct?
Okay,
You and you.
good test. I don't think there's feedback.
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, no more
So
feedback.
But if people from the site will hear this.
Okay,
Yeah.
We
So
can-
then you can mute and unmute yourself.
because now it's taking it.
No, it shows
When
that
we-
screen. Okay,
Yeah,
are we good? So I think we're good. I don't hear any feedback.
okay.
What's good?
Oh, you could hear it?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I know it's going online.
Yeah. Richard, you can hear it.
You can have it online. Okay.
Where I go?
Yes. So it's
Alright,
this.
thank you so much for your patience. With our technical difficulties.
Oh, I think he's
I
seeing
can
the
hear,
site.
I can hear, but I can't hear her talking. Okay.
Yes?
I can hear us talking, but I can't hear her. You can't hear us. Oh, wait. Yeah.
Testing,
Because
testing.
How's school?
I know.
Also been sound. How long is the delay on it? Is it like 10 seconds?
Yeah, I can read it.
Oh, it's a delay. How long? Yeah. Did you hear,
Testing,
This is also.
yeah, I hear it, the huge delay. It's like 10, it's like delay. Okay, it's like a delay, but.
I believe we have a go and there is a 10-second delay. So we're gonna work with what we have. And thank you so much for your patience with our technical difficulties.
Just. Layout.
Okay. So we will continue with public comment.
And so we are back from recess now.
Yes.
Chair Jones,
Presence.
new member of ARCA. Here. New member Sora. New member Madagan. New member Lewis. New member Morales. New member Shimoto. New member Rivera. New member Rouse. Inform.
Thank you so much. And once again, I'd like to remind everyone that public comment is limited to 2 minutes. And I'd like to start first with those that are here with us in person.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will call 3 at a time. Renee Ocampo, Chelsea Velez, Chichi Navarro,
Yes. Really close.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Velez. I'm a resident of District 13. I'm also queer and gender fluid. I'm the policy coordinator for the Trans Latina Coalition. I'm here to encourage you all to work with the county to use ULA funding to create affordable housing for the transgender, gender expansion, and intersex community. At Trans Latina Coalition, we're advocating for a TGI housing initiative, which that will be at the community level, and we're advocating for a $20 million homelessness prevention program that would help the TGI community, immigrants, elderly, assistance and package, and formerly incarcerated communities. So this is a creative solution that we've created with our community, and it would provide flexible financial assistance, unpaid assistance, case management, and tenants' rights education. This issue is close to my heart. Last year, I was escaping a domestic violence situation and found myself homeless. And I found myself feeling very lucky because I was able to rely on various friends for housing and to have a roof over my head. My case is unique. When I was homeless, I had a degree and I was also working 35 hours a week. So I did have an income, but I wasn't able to cover my basic needs. I wasn't able to afford to pay rent. I couldn't afford housing. It was a struggle to access food stamps with everything happening at the federal level. So while I feel that I personally was lucky, the transgender, gender expansive, intersex community is not always this lucky. Our community experiences high rates of houselessness compared to the general population. And because of that, I want to encourage you all to work with the county to ensure that our community has access to culturally competent and TGI-led housing solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have
Renee Ocampo for Chichi Navarra.
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Ocampo, and I am a resident of the county of Los Angeles. I am here to express my concern during to the issue of the crisis of living situation. And the increase of homeless people and also of TGI within our community. Many working families are struggling in order to pay their rent. Nonetheless, thousands of people are homeless and often they are living out on the street and they don't have access to proper homing, proper housing. They don't have medical attention, nor do they have support with services. That's why I continue to ask to please help us out and to provide accessible homes. Programs with prevention, programs for work. Mental health services. And solutions to help people in order for them to obtain permanent housing. Also, it is very important, and we need a guarantee of transparency and the rendition of issues and bills in order to pay the public resources that are being utilized in a more effective way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Okay, perfect. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, buenas tardes, everybody. My name is Chichi Navarro. I use any and all pronouns, and I am a policy intern with the Trans-Latina Coalition. First and foremost, let me start off by saying happy Disability Pride Month. If y'all were not aware, well, now you're aware. We are the Trans-Latina Coalition are the nation's largest TGI-led and TGI-serving nonprofit organization. If you do not know what TGI stands for, that stands for transgender, gender expansive, and intersex. You have heard and will continue to hear from my colleagues about the need for housing solutions, which you're already all aware of, right? We know that in the city as well as in the county, we have some of the highest homelessness rates in the nation, right? We also have one of the biggest economies in the nation. And yet the city as well as the county continues to invest in policing, continues to criminalize people, instead of investing in things like mental health, housing, things that will actually prevent people from winding up homeless and then inevitably winding up incarcerated or being homeless. So I urge you today, we have an initiative that we presented to you well before this year, right? You have all seen this, we're happy to share it with you all again. We are happy to continue the collaboration as we have been doing to ensure that this initiative goes through. The TGI Housing Initiative is a homelessness prevention program where we are requesting $20 million to be invested in a total of 2 years. This would help people who are not just TGI, but who are also disabled, who are elderly, who have been impacted by the carceral system. We have the plan laid out for you all. What we need is your support for this. We need those investments so that we do not continue seeing our people, our siblings, our children, continue to be homeless. Many of the people that come to Trans-Latina are or have experienced homelessness in their life. If you look at the data, it shows you that TGI folks, in comparison to LGBT plus people, statistically are more prone to experience homelessness in their lifetime. That is not a coincidence. We're talking about a group of people who are further being marginalized by this administration. Because trans people aren't just trans. Trans people can also be immigrant people. Trans people are also disabled people. Trans people are also people who have to, for example, perform sex work because they're not allowed to do any other type of work. And are driven to that because, for example, their undocumented status. So we are here today asking, pleading to at least listen to what it is that we're telling you. And to help us and to join us in making a change and ensuring that Los Angeles continues to be that beacon of light for the rest of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next three speakers, Adriana Arbona, Claudia Abundis, Bebe Olivares.
Like this is a thin line. It's bypassing them. But then maybe I can.
Madam Chair,
I don't
the last
see,
names.
I don't see
First names.
Buenas tardes,
Good afternoon,
it because.
mi nombre es Adriana,
my name is Adriana,
soy una mujer transgénero
and I'm a transgender female.
y estoy aquí para pedir que se nos dé acceso a una vivienda asequible,
And I am here to request that we have accessible housing.
porque hemos sido por generaciones muy discriminadas y muy agredidas.
Throughout the generations, we have been discriminated and we have been very aggressively.
Y lo digo porque es una experiencia muy grande. Yo viví 20 años en la calle
I'm telling you this because throughout my life, I have been 20 years homeless and I've been lived out in the streets.
y he sido una persona muy discriminada. Yo tengo discapacidad, no puedo trabajar.
I'm a person that has been discriminated and I am a person that has been disabled.
Pero aún así le estoy echando ganas para poder sobrevivir, ganarme algo vendiendo.
But nonetheless, I still give it all that I can. And I do whatever I can in order to survive.
Por eso es que pido que se nos tome en cuenta, porque somos seres humanos, tanto ustedes como nosotros.
And that's why I ask for you guys to take us into consideration, because we are human beings, just like you.
No somos animales.
We are not animals.
Además, yo sufrí muchas vejaciones, violación también y golpes.
I have suffered a lot. I have even been raped and also beaten.
Yo no he tenido una vivienda porque mi vida siempre ha sido muy que no tengo nada.
I don't have a home because my life is, well, I don't have any.
Hasta ahorita pude ver que estoy en un shelter, gracias a Dios,
Thank God, now I am in a shelter.
pero muchas no pueden entrar porque no hay suficiente papeleo que hace uno.
Because many of us cannot have that, because there's a lot of paperwork involved.
Y yo lo que pido es que aboguen por nosotros, porque es una vivienda digna, mejor para todos.
And I ask for you to please speak up for us, because this is something that we do deserve. We do deserve that dignity.
Y se dicen 20 años fácil, pero 20 años que se pongan en los zapatos de una persona que quedó discapacitada, que aquí, por esa discapacitación, estoy como estoy.
20 years seems easy, but it's not. It's been 20 years, and throughout all that time, I have been disabled,
Y,
and it has not been easy at all.
y no es casualidad. Por eso estoy aquí en pie, para pedir que se nos tome en cuenta a las mujeres transgéneros.
And it's not a coincidence. And that's why I'm here standing before you, and I want you to take us into consideration, us, the females that are transgender.
Y es por eso que pido que por favor tomen en cuenta esta petición, inviertan para uno.
And that's why I request, and I ask you to take into consideration this petition, to please invest.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Claudia Abundis. It's called Abundis. I'm 54 years old. My pronunciation is she, her. Now I'm an out proud trans woman. I lived for a long time, just going as a woman. But now I feel like now is the time, for me to speak up. Because as you know, the Trump administration is going after the trans community. Imagine this, being trans, being an immigrant. So that's a lot, right? So, and the Trump administration is cutting taxes for the rich. And, he's cutting funding for PrEP, AIDS prevention, medical, Medicaid. So we're struggling. And I'm here in representation of my TGI, and especially my elder sisters. As you see, some of them, have disabilities. Some of them are older. They can get, good jobs. They live day by day, and sometimes it's hard for them to get like a decent housing. So yeah, I understand that the ULA-COC is a progressive structure of revenue that will make equal opportunities for our minority communities. I guess it's taxing the rich, the mansions, right? So this legislation has been reviewed and approved by the Mayor Karen Bass and Councilmember Nithya Raman. I also am a person who watches the news every day. I want to be on top of it because, like I said, it's time for me to put my little, part and come out over here. I don't need to be here, but I wanted to be here and make my voice heard. The UCLA has conducted our research, and it said that 2 weeks of rates last year, business have been being impacted 46,000 fewer shoppers, 3 million revenue loss, 95 owners still face money challenges. So it's time for you guys to support the minority communities, especially the trans community, and keep us in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
David Olivares and Roxy Royalty.
Hola, muy buenas tardes.
Hi, good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Debra Olivares.
My name is Deval Olivares.
Soy parte de la organización Latina Coalition.
And I belong to an organization, Trans Latina Organization,
La cual nos ayuda a la comunidad transgénero con asuntos relacionados con vivienda,
taking the transgender community with issues, for example, with housing,
grupos de apoyo,
support groups.
y quiero que en esta ocasión digo, porque quiero pedirle por favor que apoyen a las organizaciones que ayudan a la comunidad trans.
And on this occasion, I come before you and I want you to please help the organizations that help the transgenders.
El programa de vivienda ahorita está en la crisis de vivienda.
I understand the housing program right now is in crisis,
Pero el proceso para conseguir una vivienda justa a un precio razonable cada vez es más difícil.
in order to get a fair housing and just, as the way things are going right now is very difficult.
Con esta administración que tenemos, las cosas se están poniendo más difíciles aún.
With the administration that we have, things are getting even more difficult.
Por eso quiero ser apoyo de su parte,
That's why I would like your support
que apoyen a nuestras organizaciones
and to support our organizations
para que haga más fácil el proceso de salud, vivienda, seguridad,
so that way the process of health, housing, and health be easier.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, my brothers and sisters. My name is Roxy Royalty.
I transitioned when I was 11 years old. And I come from a very abusive household. And I come from a family that, a very traditional Mexican family that believes in religion. I know that God makes no mistakes, and I know that we are all God's children. I'm not a victim of anything as a childhood experience that I had, but as an adult, I could have been homeless, I could have been a drug addict, I could have been a rapist, I could have been a molester, but I'm none of that. Because I'm not a victim. We're not victims of anything in life. And this is our brothers and sisters out here asking for our help. And our job is to help our brothers and sisters. Because God is watching. Their ancestors are watching. Please do what's right. There's hardly any more time for this. And it's up to you guys to help your brothers and sisters. And I believe in all of you, that you guys are gonna do the right thing. Because your ancestors are watching you. And you need to make your ancestors proud. And your families, your brothers and sisters. Because you may not think it's not gonna happen to you guys. But we all are in everybody's family. You have gays, you have lesbians, you have straights, trans, pedophiles, molesters. And we protect the molesters, we protect the child predators. And these people that molest you women and molest you boys. Because it's not only the men that do these things to you. There's also these women that do these things to you. And there's pain, there's suffering in this world that we need to help one another. There's services, there's places to help your brothers and sisters. Stop being selfish. The world is big. I love you, brothers and sisters. And I know you're gonna do the right thing. And this is not the first time you're gonna see me. I love you.
Thank you.
There are no more in-person requests for public comment. We then move on to virtual comments. For those attending virtually, if your name or number is called, please unmute. Your name is called. First speaker, D. Gallo. D. Gallo, please unmute.
Yes, hi, can you hear me? Yes, should I proceed? Okay. I assume you can hear me?
Can you tell if they're speaking?
Can you hear me? Oh boy.
Speaker, we can see that you're.
Yes, can you hear me?
On the Zoom, but we don't have audio.
Oops. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello,
Can we tell if it's on our end?
can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Shoot.
Just a moment, please be patient with us. We're trying to get our virtual public comments.
Can you hear me? Hello? 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 Shoot. Hello?
Our audio out.
Yes, I am trying to speak. Can
I
you hear
hear
me?
yes.
Can you hear me?
What was that?
Yeah, what was that? Are they speaking?
Can you hear me?
Ask them to speak again.
Can you hear me?
Public commenter, could you please speak again?
Yeah, I think we need Can you come down real quick, please?
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
I am so sorry.
We can't, somebody's calling in, but we can't hear them.
Hello,
Calling in from Zoom, right?
right.
Just one moment, public comment.
Can you hear me?
Patience. We can't hear you.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh, okay, hold on. Let me try something. Let me mute this and then he can unmute maybe. Hold on.
Hello? 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 Hello?
We can actually hear you.
Can you hear me? Hello? 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 Hello?
Can you get public comment?
Hello? Hello?
There's not too much feedback.
Hello? Hello?
I think they're chatting.
Hello? 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 Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, speaker. Speak
Oh, you
freely.
can? Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You all being so patient. I've been saying hello 15 times here. I'll be quick since I've taken so much time already. My name is Dora Gallo. I'm with a community of friends, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of the 12 organizations that sent the Citizens Oversight Committee a letter on June 22nd about the Operating Assistance Program. We're really glad to see LHD and the COC continue to fine-tune the ULA programs via the amendments to the program guidelines, which is item 10. You know, we're all very interested in it, making sure that we achieve the desired program outcomes. And we do hope to see the expenditure numbers in item number 6 increase by the end of the calendar year. But we're most interested in number 7. There's no written documents. I understand there's going to be a report regarding how to implement the CLC's approved and recommended amendments to the measure and what legislative changes might be needed. This is because our 12 organizations that signed on to the letter to this committee, we continue to be concerned that as the first recipients of the ULA Operating Assistance Program, we will not benefit from your recommended changes. And it just doesn't seem right. We ask you that you consider, as you consider number 7, that every consideration be given to allow the changes to be retroactive to our awards so that our buildings will also benefit, including the tenants who reside in our buildings. And we wanted this opportunity to perhaps even increase, because the amendments do allow for an increase in funds, so we're restricted how much we've been awarded. It, turns it into a forgivable grant. We won't have that opportunity. And then, as previously mentioned, we continue to be concerned about the amounts because of the imposition of prevailing wage. That's really going to take a third of the funding away. So please do, as you listen to these items, to ask the questions to allow some sort of retroactivity to apply to the awardees of the first round one. Thank you.
Devin Woodfine. Devin Woodfine, please unmute.
Hello, everyone. I'm Devin Woodfine. I wanted to provide an update regarding my UD on the 15th. My family was represented by Intercity Law, and we filed a motion for sanctions and an MSJ. Within 48 hours, the owner decided to dismiss the case rather than having to go hear our motion. So we are no longer going through the UD process. And then I wanted to talk about the Tahoe report that you guys are going to hear. There were some things I wanted to correct. Tenant harassment isn't a complex issue. It's very well legally defined in the ordinance. And oftentimes, whether it's the Tahoe Task Force, the RSR or JCO teams that investigate, they're not following the applicable laws and utilizing that in valuation. I've dealt with other tenants, and even in my own cases, where we've exceeded the amount of evidence necessary, whether it's through videos, texts, emails, and they're not reviewing all of it. I understand they're always talking about staffing, but it's not the fault that LHD is not recruiting outside of its own um, environment by going in and doing mass recruiting. You can find people outside of you doing lateral promotions. So I really wish that you push back on some of the narratives that have been stated, because at one point they were claiming there were only like 50 something cases, and it's now changed drastically. um, what really needs to change is the fact that when tenants are providing proof and inspectors or investigators are not evaluating based off of the evidence as a neutral party, oftentimes they try to force the tenants into compliance in violation of their rights under the law. And that's unfair when a tenant can prove that a housing provider is engaging in behavior that under the law would be determined to be egregious, negligent, or harmful. We need to ensure that LAHD is understanding its position in that role. It's not just about education and outreach. They are often the only source of remediation that a tenant has. When you deal with law firms that would provide some relief, tenants often get limited scope representation. That's not going to solve all of their needs. And whether it's through the ACE program, the city attorney referrals, there are various different ways that LHD has to address habitability issues, harassment, that often are not being utilized because maybe an inspector doesn't want to go through the paperwork or they're too busy. And that often creates problems down the line where tenants who have done everything to exhaust their resources are still experiencing these things that provide a detriment to them. So I hope that you guys take this report with a grain of salt and you look into it deeply with what LHD has said in the past and how that is actually impacted by the lived experience of what people have said to this board. Thank you all so much.
Online, Sylvia Marroquin. Sylvia Marroquin.
And accept when the dialogue box opens, then you will speak.
Hello? Okay, I guess you can hear me now. Good afternoon. My name is Sylvia Marroquim. I'm a senior organizer with SAGE, and I'm here today to emphasize the importance of ensuring Tahoe is implemented with feedback from tenants and tenant advocates who have experience with the Tahoe process. To ensure harassment protections are enforced, as a tenant or as an advocate for tenants, we observe the following issues that make it difficult for LA City tenants to have faith that this law will support them in stopping the harassment. For instance, the LHD complaint process has been difficult for most tenants to navigate, especially if they do not have support from the LHD investigator or a CBO partner. LHD must enhance transparency in all regards, especially in providing a clear, standardized Tahoe process and expectations for tenants they are working with to prevent any confusion and leaving tenants in the dark. Many tenants have submitted complaints with their evidence and have had their cases closed automatically without justification for why the investigator made that decision. Also, increasing communication barriers and difficulties between tenants and investigators, especially since most communication is on the investigator's time and schedule. Also, most investigators have shared their tenants that they prefer verbal communication, limiting communication options and making very difficult for continuous collaboration between the tenant and the investigator. LHD investigators are not utilizing their full powers to support tenants facing extreme and egregious forms of harassment. They have the power to refer intense cases to the internal Tahoe task force. The internal teams with the power to cite faulty landlords as well as refer the case to the city attorney's office. The internal Tahoe task force must utilize their powers to support the victims of a harassment case, not stall the process and diminish any hope a tenant may have. LHD staff, including investigators, intake staff, the internal task force should regularly be trained on the law itself. They should also be provided with trauma-informed trainings to better support the tenants facing trauma in real time. That's it for me. Thank you.
Next speaker, Amy Linda. Amy Linda, please unmute.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you. My name is Amy Linda from the LA Right to Counsel Coalition. In regard to item 7, we urge you to continue to protect ULA from amendments that do not further its purpose, and thank you for agendizing the discussion regarding legislative impacts to ULA. We are following this very closely. For item 9, we want to additionally thank you for monitoring the progress of the State House LA contracts and want to urge that we cannot let a delay like this impact homelessness prevention services in the future, and ask you to continue to hold the responsible parties accountable to execute ULA program contracts and provide funding in a timely manner so that tenants are not negatively impacted. Setting a deadline to execute program contracts is just one idea. For item 8, the pipeline of tenants who are harassed to tenants who are evicted is important to uplift, especially as the Tahoe program is implemented. This is a homelessness prevention program. Please prioritize processes that make the Tahoe program effective. Please make the complaint process transparent and document case management and determinations so that tenants are aware of the progress. And focus on citing landlords who are constantly harassing tenants so that tenants can live in their housing in peace, which is what the program is intended to accomplish. Please provide proper and consistent training to the housing investigators, including intensive training on the law itself and trauma-informed trainings so that they can better support tenants. Thank you so much.
That concludes all the virtual speakers, but we did receive 2 more requests to in-person comments. It's your discretion. We've already closed, but it's your discretion to reopen in-person public comment. So here, these last 2, only these last 2.
Okay, at my discretion, I will reopen public comment. I do appreciate the time and energy that folks take to come all the way down here, and I do want to hear you. So who's the first?
Pamela Morieda, and second, Francisco Salcido.
Thank you. Yes. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. The TTI community has tried to have food mental health in house. I start talking about my own experience. I have a problem to pay my rent because I have health problems. I wasn't risk to lose my apartment. Thanks to a GBT center, I solved my problem. Now I'm back to school. But I decided when I saw a member of my community homeless in this Pakistan. Please consider my PGI community to get better quality life. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. And for our last speaker, can you speak directly into the mic? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Francisco.
A little bit more.
Hello, my name is Francisco Salcido. I'm an ex-homeless person. In my life, I belong to the APT community and stop for use, so I became homeless. And I start using. And when you are homeless, you suffer a lot of things. You get raped, you get beat up, you get robbed. So it's very hard for our community to be homeless. And from my educational experience, that was the worst time in my life to be able to be homeless. And I very pleased to have consideration for people, our community. I have housing now, sober and unified social member of the society. I'm very pleased to consider as community because for us it's very hard to struggle in life because our orientation is hard for us.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to say, I appreciate all those that came down today and also those that are online and that were patient with our technical difficulties. I understand the courage to share and we really appreciate you for speaking today. Thank you. That concludes public comment. And what I'm going to do because of time and some of the difficulties that we've had today, I'd like to just rearrange the agenda just a little bit and take on the action items. And those items I'd like it to be number 7, number 9, and 10, and then we'll proceed and go back to item number 4 and the rest of the agenda. Would that be okay, members?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, that concludes item number 3, and that takes us to item number 7, which is a discussion regarding legislative changes that are impacting ULA. And today we'll be discussing those changes, and it is council file number 26-077. 4 and the motion introduced by Tracy Park per section 22.618.83B of Measure ULA, the COC shall review any proposed amendment to the measure and will issue an opinion. And that proposed amendment is consistent with the purposes of this measure. Today, we are here to do just that. The motion creates a one-time 5-year exemption for Measure ULA transfer tax for the residential properties and the owners of homes that were damaged or destroyed in January 2025's Palisades fire. It applies to the reciprocity qualified transactions that started January 7th of 2025. Because the city attorney determined that the council cannot grant this administratively, ULA was voter inactive, and therefore the exemption requires voter approval. City council directed the city attorney to draft ballot language. Today, we would like to discuss if these exemptions are in line with the stated purposes of the measure, which I think most likely that it is, given that the COC's previous work to ensure programs are responsive to disaster victims through its income support program. So I'd like to open the floor for discussion on item number 7. Madam Chair, do we have a copy of the amendments in our packet here?
Yes.
This is where we're speaking to. So.
Can we get copies of that amendment prior to commenting on it?
It's on the packet.
Anyone else?
We don't have copies of it.
Refer to my IGT.
I don't have copies I don't have copies of the motion with me, but we can provide the council file, but I don't have the copies.
It's in the proposed amendments here, right?
If I recall, there was a report that was done by LAHD about the financial impact of that change to ULA, is that correct?
It's item 7.
Anyone from the department want to respond?
Is item 7 the top one?
Report from LAHD about the financial impacts of the contract between ULA did not include that exact specific scenario.
Yeah.
But there
We have
are
this.
estimates that are similar.
Yeah, and your amendments, that's all we have.
Information regarding if it's gonna be retroactive all the way back to January 7th. That sounds like the taxes might have already happened, and then there will be some type of retro. Do we have a dollar amount here? Not yet?
I don't think so.
Can we get that?
No, I didn't hear
It's. Paragon have the floor.
Also, not having it in front of us, are you looking for us to comment on it now for purposes of transmission to the council office?
Well, are there any questions or do you want to?
Well, my question basically, are we commenting now in order to be able to have our thoughts, opinions, questions, transmitted to the council office?
Yes. Well, the intent of this motion for conversations with the chair and vice chair was to provide a space for the members to discuss on proposed amendments to Measure ULA, but if the committee doesn't feel prepared at this moment to continue this conversation, we can absolutely wait and have a more informed discussion for an upcoming meeting. So, yeah, I think that would be the recommendation.
And I guess one point to that would be maybe good for us to see the financial information that you mentioned. At the same time too, This idea of exempting, and again, the Palisades from ULA for any period of time. I don't understand it. I don't understand what the rationale is, besides the political upside. Besides the political upside, what is the, from a development point of view, I don't understand why we would exempt Palisades from ULA. I mean, basically, what benefit does it give to homeowners, property owners there such that development is going to be encouraged, we're going to have more, in this some, I know that besides the political law, knows it's going to be what is the actual benefit to it in the residents, and outside of that, I mean, I think this committee should basically be opposed to it.
We can actually have that as part of this discussion, and one of the things that I'd like to add is not only the financial, but how many exact homes does that include? We're talking about only those that have had their house completely destroyed or have gone through such devastation that they had to sell it. And I guess the thought process for me would be, why tax them if they're forced to sell? Otherwise, if the fire would have happened in the so we're talking about the victims itself, and we want to open up a conversation and get that data. But we can also take it, put it forth again with the questions that we rise for the next agenda. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so when you, as you just stated, those, you said victims, what? Those individuals who lost their homes, they're not the only ones impacted. There were many people in the Palisades who were service providers. They were renters. They were people who were in the community, maybe when I don't want to say marginally, but I mean, they weren't at this level. They were at this level in terms of living and working in that community. And they were impacted completely if they were renting an apartment and probably not with renter's insurance, then they were impacted even more. So that part of the population is sometimes, I think I want to say, omitted from the focus of the conversation because of the name of the community, that Pacific Palisades. That sounds like homeowners, individuals who are wealthy, insured, and on and on and on, when there are vast number of people who literally, I just happened to be looking at you, I'm not focusing on citizens, but they are, their voice is muted, their presence in that community as community members is just kind of oversight.
Well, I appreciate that. But my question is, how does an exemption in ULA benefit them?
Okay, but I'm just saying, when we were talking homeowners, that was what was said, and I was just pointing out there are a lot of people who aren't homeowners, in addition to what you said.
So a couple of thoughts. It sounds like I think as a group, we may not be ready to vote on this today. I think that's fair. I have some questions about timing. My memory is that we, to some extent, this group, to the extent we could, did address some of those concerns with the approval of the emergency rental assistance for people impacted by the wildfires in a more expansive way, understanding that being people who worked in the Palisades, and this was
the income support program.
The income support program. So I do think that this body has identified that there are these moments where we need to act in ways we didn't expect. We were not expecting to have, right, massive disaster. I would propose, I think the reason I think that we should thoughtfully consider this exemption is because the difference in this situation than in others is we're talking about places where there are not habitable buildings. So there need to be owners who are going to build there to be able to develop the properties in a way that I think is different than in other locations where we're talking about selling and those sorts of things, because right now we're not talking about even necessarily selling buildings, right? We're talking about selling vacant lots or damaged lots. And so I do think that's something that's very fundamentally different. I'm open to the conversation about whether we do, believe this exemption is going to serve what I think is really the heart of ULA, which is housing development and primarily affordable housing development. I think this might be a moment where we think about how this might have an exemption as well. So those are my initial thoughts. I do have a question for the IAG about the timing, because my understanding is that we need to issue something before city council acts next, and we don't have a meeting scheduled until potentially September. So if we don't act today, does that mean we're going to need to schedule an interim meeting? Or what, I guess, what are the consequences of us not acting today?
And before you answer, I'd like to add, remember, we're only considering lots and properties that are $5 million in excess. So the ones that were less than that, we're not really, they're not really affected by the tax. And so that's one of the reasons why, we want to know the impacts financially of those particular lots, properties, approximately the number of homes, the amount of money we're talking that may be retroactive. Forward to the IIG.
Yeah, so this has to do with when this gets placed on the ballot, right? And if you all make findings that this is not in accordance with the intent of the measure, then city council has to come back to you all with findings, to say why they choose to go ahead, why they would be. I believe it still goes to the ballot sometime in August, or that's been approved by August, but we can get back to on the exact timing of that. But what we'll do is get back to a specific date. We might have to call a special meeting. If you all are silent on this, then council will end this. So that's the only issue.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd be interested in hearing whether there are any alternative approaches to how ULA treats Palisades that were considered. For an example, brainstorming, what occurs to me is, an exemption for property up to make up a number, $10 million, or a certain size. I mean, it seems to me that there are many properties or many owners who are in different situations and are being would potentially be impacted or have been impacted in different ways by this. And I'm a little concerned about a measure that I'm not sure, as you say, exactly what problem it's addressing and whether there are alternative ways to address it. So although I'm sympathetic to the need to address a problem, it's a little hard to get our hands around from the information we've gotten, aside from the political issues.
And aside from there only being 5 properties, I believe.
Yeah, so I guess maybe a question for this group is, what is the, does one articulate the concern? Is it that this will represent the significant reduction in ULA revenues? Is that the concern? Is it a concern about fairness? Like, think we can articulate that?
I think the thing about it is that I think anytime you do an exemption, okay, it opens the door. Opens the door. Right, and we've already, the council, council people have come up with, a variety of potential exemptions. This is one potential exemption, and again, besides the political aspect to it, I'm asking a very simple question: what problem is it? What problem is it trying to resolve? is it that many lots that will sell for $5 million and we feel bad about? Bad about charging taxes to someone who's lost their home? Is it for someone who buys a property, builds a house, some developer and flips it, and now has an exemption? We're trying to, why would we give that person an exemption? I mean, again, I might be simple, but it's basically what's the problem and what's the solution? No one has articulated, besides the political benefit of it, what the problem is they're trying to resolve, what's the problem they're trying to solve? And whether this particular exemption would somehow incentivize some development, recovery, something that we should be supportive of.
And I'd also like to correct the misspoke. It wasn't 5 properties. It was an exemption for 5 years. And I guess my question would be, is it a one-time? Is it only the sale from the original owner, not anyone that purchases? And I believe that's what I'm reading, but I'm still open to discussion on anyone else that hasn't gotten this. We need clarification.
So it sounds like this might be something that needs to go to the policy amendment subcommittee, maybe with a presentation from Councilman Parks. Definitely, just to understand what the rationale motion was, or by the proposed amendment. We will need to get back to you all on just time to make sure the plan lines up.
And I have a question, and if our timing is of an issue, would a special meeting be necessary for us to just deal with that one item so we can actually move forward and not hold up progress?
Yes.
Okay, I'm open to that. How about the rest of the members? Okay, all right.
It only is something that the full council already voted on. And it covers it basically a motion, that's now go to the committee, it still has to go to council.
They cannot approve the amendments without COC commenting and opining on them. At that point, after you issue your opinion letter, they may or may not still approve it, but if they do approve it despite your opinion finding otherwise, then there are certain findings that they actually have to make. They approve and finally.
And has it gone to committee, or does it have to go to committee?
It would go to committee. I staff the H&A's committee, it has not been approached yet, because for obvious reason that they've been in the process. By the first meeting in August.
Anyone else? So what are we gonna decide? Information, and if we get the information, we wanna make sure that it lines up with our timeline for city council. And if we need to call a special meeting prior to then, we will, just on this item alone. So that should be
a vote on the proposed action item on the table until we have information requested, all the conditions that we just set forth, and come back to a special meeting. At least prior to the time needed. Right.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, you actually don't need motion. Tabling this. Provide instruction to IIG.
And to confirm next steps on the IIG side, so the questions that we are asking are, what is the rationale for the proposed amendment? What are the potential impacts on revenues, properties, anything else?
Alternatives?
And what alternatives?
What was mentioned? Sorry. Also, what was mentioned was, is it for
this one time. And
One time, 5 years.
one time 5, that was also.
So confirming the one time during that duration.
Which is the original owner of record at the time of file.
And we applies. Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
This is just a clarification question. Can you just give us the council file number again to make sure we all have?
Oh, yes.
To review it ourselves?
Ready?
Yes.
Council file 26-0774.
Thank you.
And it was introduced by Tracy Park. And it's per section, pen still up. 22.618.83B.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this body, next special meeting, we have to reach a consensus, either a yes, we're cool with this, or no, we are not cool with this.
So we can.
So we all have to somehow end up on the same page about this issue. And what happens if we cannot?
I mean, there'll be a vote, so I don't all have to. But I mean, whatever the majority is, that's what we're.
How it was a vote turns out at that special meeting. So stay tuned. Very special. All right. So does that conclude item number 7? And we can take and jump to the other action item, which is number 8, which is a discussion regarding State House LA program contracts. Oh, I'm sorry, item 9. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Okay, first, little bit of context. On March 3rd, 2026, following the competitive process, the city council approved a new round of State House LA contracts totaling approximately $177 million associated with the Los Angeles Legal Aid Foundation, Liberty Hill Foundation, Strategic Action for Just Economy, which is SAGE, and also for the Southern California Housing Rights Center, which is HRC. From March to July, we saw those contracts delayed in execution. Coalition partners have reported that the delay resulted in staff furloughs, layoffs among service providers, unacceptable rental assistance funds, and interruptions to eviction defense, outreach, and tenant education services during the period of the highlighted housing instability. As of early July 2026, the city attorney's office indicated that 2 out of the 4 contracts have been signed, with the largest contract, LAHSA, which was executed on July 14th. During our last COC meeting in May, the city attorney's office assured that the contracts were making progress, yet there were still significant delays. We appreciate the communication between the city attorney's office and the COC, but we still have significant questions. Given the significance of these delays to tenants and service providers across the city, the committee wishes to better understand the contracting process for State House LA to identify any opportunities, support timely execution moving forward. This item directs the IIG to coordinate with the city attorney and State House LA service providers to present an overview of the contracting process and the upcoming committee meeting, so that the committee may remain informed and engaged, and to avoid any types of delays like this in the future. Before I entertain a motion, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Before there are discussions with committee members, it is my understanding that 3 of the 4 contracts have been executed. Final contract with the contract with Liberty Hill still has not been executed. There were comments at our office, city attorney's office, made to the contract and transmitted notice to Liberty Hill on July 8th.
And for the public, can you state the services that they will be providing?
I'm sorry,
And for the public, can you state which services they will be providing?
I don't have that info, I was just giving.
The outreach? I think it was educational outreach. Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. Any questions or discussions? All right, well, thank you for considering. Moving. Okay. I'd like to now move that the COC instruct the IIG to coordinate with the city attorney's office to State House LA. Service providers to prepare and present a report for the upcoming COC meeting on State House LA program, contracting process, including relevant timelines, verification steps, and any opportunities for input. Is there a motion?
That's the motion.
I'll second. For that? Any more open discussion? All right. City Attorney, please take one.
Chair Jones,
That's a yes.
Committee Member Barca.
Yes.
Committee Member Barragan.
Yes.
Committee Member Lewis.
Yes.
Committee Member Morales.
Yes.
Committee Member Nishimoto.
Yes.
Committee Member Rivera.
Yes.
Committee Member Rout.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much for that. That will conclude item number 9. That means we can move to item number 10, which is a report from the Policy Review Ad Hoc Committee on recommended amendments to the ULA program guidelines. We do have a Los Angeles Housing Department presentation. But before that, next on our agenda is our policy review. The action item for this is to approve the amendments to the program according to the guidelines. So with our policy review ad hoc committee, the amendments to the ULA program guidelines follow a presentation by, will be followed by a presentation from LAHD on behalf of the policy amendment review ad hoc committee. So this item remains. So we want to do the presentation first or after?
We can do the presentation now.
Beautiful.
Alrighty. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Evan Sun. I support the Housing Department's work implementing the ULA production and preservation programs, and I'm here to present proposed amendments to the ULA program guidelines. Before I begin my presentation, I'd like to give a little more context for why you're hearing this item today. LHD is preparing the launch of the round 2 of the Homes for LA Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, and Homes for LA is the department's primary vehicle for deploying ULA production and preservation funding. We've completed our first commitment of round 1 funds back in May of this year. And as a reminder, the city awarded 80 projects totaling 5,241 units through that round 1 solicitation. In running the competitive solicitation and underwriting projects, LHD learned some things. We realized that we needed the ability to make larger funding infusions through the ULA operating assistance program, for example, than what's allowed under the current ULA program guidelines. This body endorsed in its last meeting a package of such changes. And since then, we've conducted a stakeholder survey, looped in more staff to look at the ULA program guidelines, and are proposing an additional package of amendments to the, we proposed an additional package of amendments to the COC's policy amendment ad hoc. The red lines I will be presenting today have been vetted by the ad hoc and incorporate feedback from that subcommittee. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to try to go a little bit faster so that we have more time for questions. So just some quick hits here. Not going to go into full history lesson, but We have some members who joined the committee after this body created the program guidelines, and the development of the ULA program guidelines are one of the responsibilities of the COC. We have 11 program guidelines that were developed in 2024, and they were adopted by the council in December of that year. I've already mentioned that we're gearing up to open round 2 of the Homes for LA NOFA, and we continue to make refinements to our approach, in part by seeking changes to the guidelines to better reflect the situation and needs on the ground. A little bit more about the process. As we know, the COC has the authority to develop or amend program guidelines. Once the full COC has voted to recommend the program guidelines, it goes to the full council. It goes to the council, which has a 120-day shot clock to adopt or amend the guidelines. Otherwise, they are approved as recommended by the COC. I'm going to breeze through these next 2 slides, which are about a review of what the COC adopted in its previous meeting. So on to the new stuff. We've proposed removing prescriptive language and only keeping more general parameters in several places. And starting with the eligible costs and calculation of maximum assistance limits. We used to list the amounts, such as limiting rental subsidies to only 2 months per year. Those are proposed for removal. For clarification, rental subsidies refer specifically to funds used to pay rent, and there are other types of operating subsidies in this program that still can support projects for longer than 2 months. Additionally, we're proposing to remove limitations around funding capital improvements, even though we believe that the focus of this program should be for operating rather than capital uses. As you might recall from recent discussions about this program, our awardees are finding it very difficult to comply with the ULA measures prevailing wage requirements. When the cap on the capital funds is only $250,000, they're finding it difficult to find contractors who are willing to do much less work for the prevailing wage. Additional removal of prescriptive language on the exit strategy, which there was a requirement for a detailed 2-year exit strategy, and that was one of the centerpieces of the original operating assistance program guidelines. LHD and the COC had wanted to ensure that this very limited funding pool would not be committed to projects that don't have a realistic path from exiting our assistance. However, after running this solicitation, LHD believes that the 2-year requirement is too difficult. And while we will continue to propose that stabilization remain a target for this program and a component of what they have to show us, we don't believe it should be a requirement. Finally, similarly to the previous slides where there was language limiting rental assistance to only 2 months out of a year and requiring that awardees transition off our support after 2 years of assistance, the guidelines originally contained language laying out a strict calculation limiting overall financial assistance to only 2 years of funding. And we're proposing, as we're lifting that cap, to also remove the requirement that we only assist them for 2 years, calculate 2 years of assistance in assisting them. This is from the rehab and capital needs assessment section of the ULA operating assistance program guidelines, and we are removing a reference to the exit strategy that I showed 2 slides ago. This is removing a reference to the 2-year exit strategy that I showed a few slides ago. And this is removing a reference to the 2-year exit strategy, as well as removing cost effectiveness as a competitive scoring criterion. And we're also recommending to remove a reference to the LHD watch list for scoring priority for awarding projects and scoring projects. Instead, we're proposing to more flexibly prioritize any LHD projects that are exhibiting signs of financial distress. So that was a quick rundown of the ULA operating assistance program guidelines. The committee also considered amendments to the ULA alternative models program guidelines. The ULA alternative programs guidelines, as a reminder, created 2 sub-programs. One is the new construction program and one is the preservation program. The last time this body met, you endorsed changes to the alternative models preservation program. And we're just proposing to mirror those changes in the new construction program. So namely, that is aligning the loan term to 57 years instead of 60 years. That was already done on the preservation program, and also removing the requirement to have the loans fully amortized. This is a red line version. And happy to take any questions.
Open to the members for questions. Everyone's. Thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. I'm not sure I fully understand the changes that are proposed. Under the ineligible activities for the operating assistance, you're deleting a restriction on new construction. Can you clarify why an operating assistance program why we would want to allow new construction as part of an operating assistance program?
The goal of the amendment to remove the ineligible activity was not to open it up to actual full new construction. We are likely to fund some preservation projects that may, using other funding sources, make capital improvements that are beyond the scope of what the operating assistance program itself would pay for. But the goal of the operating assistance program remains to pay for operating.
I'm not getting it. I would presume that new construction were to be undertaken would be done with funds other than the ULA funds under the operating assistance program, would it not?
I agree with that statement.
Yeah, so doesn't make sense to me. Let me move on to some other questions. You're also proposing to delete any maximum assistance limit.
Yes.
So the ULA operating assistance program as a whole would not have a limit, whether it's per unit or per project or whatever, it would just be established in the NOFA every year.
The proposal is to establish that in the NOFA every year. Previously, the maximum assistance limit, I'll paraphrase a little bit of what is struck in that screenshot, but essentially the previous much more restrictive calculations said that the amount of assistance would be based on projects per unit, per annum, per year cost. And the gap between what they were actually bringing in and what they were, what their costs were. So the old guidelines had that calculation that it would be limited to 2 years of assistance, and the projects that we saw come in needed oftentimes much more than that.
So if I understand that correctly, that would allow potentially a large per unit amount for an unlimited amount of time. Correct? I mean, it doesn't have to be repaid, it can be a grant. And it is pretty wide open. Correct? Or is there some other way that it is limited or constrained? No? Is it only constrained by the amount of money in the operating assistance fund?
Those pieces. Could you repeat your question?
I'm trying to get my arms around with removal of this maximum loan amount and removal of any time limits, whether there are any other constraints on the amount of funding that might be awarded to a project under the operating assistance program.
Good afternoon, Craig Arsenault, Assistant General Manager at LHD. I think the idea here was to remove some of these regulations, some of these requirements from the guidelines, and then allow us to come up with something a little more less restrictive in the actual regs. And as you mentioned before, on a local by local basis, as we adapt to see how the programs work. So we do intend to have limits. It's just gonna be a little more broad than what we did on NOFA round one. And we would like to put those limits in the regulations as opposed to having live in the guidelines.
Okay, so I mean, in essence, the guidelines provide broader authority to the department to make whatever policy decisions it decides are appropriate.
Exactly, and that way we'll have a little bit more wiggle room on a year-to-year basis to make those changes in the regulations themselves as we see fit, as opposed to having to come back every time to do guideline changes like this.
Would you expect that would result in fewer projects being assisted because you're providing more assistance for projects?
Possibly, yes. Possibly.
Okay. I'm anticipating that if you're providing more assistance to individual projects, then it means that fewer projects would receive assistance. So, I mean, it's a trade-off. Yeah, it just isn't to say that those projects receiving assistance don't need the money. Those are my questions. Thank you.
And for clarification, since they said establish in the NOFA annually, but since we do two, it would be done for each NOFA or just once, and both NOFAs would follow. That makes any sense.
No, that's a good question. Thank you for that question. I think it would be done for each NOFA probably if we see a need to make corrections, just like we're doing with this one. Post round one, we're seeing a need to make some changes for round two to make the programs a little bit more desirable to the development community. So potentially from NOFA to NOFA, we might need to make corrections. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we can establish regulations and we feel like they can stay, permanently. But if we need to make changes from NOFA to NOFA, we will.
I have one last question. Yeah, and I don't know if this is just my thinking, but I refer to the members here. It is possible that a project or a couple of projects, we need so much funding that we don't have enough funds for the rest of the year for the rest. Because I think last time we had 180. Is that gonna reduce that to half or a third or two? Is that possible?
No, I don't think the intent is to increase the limits to the point where we're reducing the amount of products that we fund that drastically. The idea is to increase the limits such that we're doing more than just putting a patch on some of these products, but we're trying to help really aim them towards stabilization. I don't anticipate that we're gonna make such dramatic change that we're only able to assist a few projects as opposed to a lot more than that. So that's not the intent here.
Thank you for the clarification, but is there a safeguard so that is?
As of right now, today, we don't have one, but as we develop the new limits, we're certainly gonna be thinking about that. Yeah.
So this is more just a comment, because I apologize, I'm gonna have to leave in 5 minutes as well, but I was a member of the subcommittee, so or ad hoc committee, so I'm not talking. I would say as I was thinking through what these proposed amendments look like, some of this is in my mind, even like the higher level questions about like what this committee does, and I think that I think our job is largely to be thinking about things in the high level ways. And I was surprised the guidelines were so specific to be developed, amongst this like citizens commission versus empowering the like administrators who are doing the work and seeing the applications and kind of seeing where the problems are happening, and quite frankly also have more time dedicated to this. And so a lot of I think the things in there were very prescriptive, very administrative things that in my mind made sense to shift over to the housing department. Like for example, the removal of the prescriptive language related to things that are not permitted. That doesn't mean those things are not permitted. That's not like definitionally what that means, right? It just means we're giving the housing department a little bit more wiggle room. The guidelines still do very clearly say what the purpose of this funding is, this program is, so I do think our job, like our body's job is to make sure that that continues to be what, you know, that purpose is still served, and I think that probably means your request to the housing department about like, okay, what do those new regulations look like, so we understand them and can understand that, but that's kind of, I will just say, like, from my perspective as a member of this ad hoc committee who also did feel uncomfortable at the beginning about a lot of things being removed. As I just thought about like what good governance looks like and those sorts of things, to me, it makes sense to shift some of that over to the housing department. So I would just offer that context as well.
Thank you for that.
I actually kind of want to follow up on that one, so just with, I guess, two questions, and the need for flexibility makes sense to me, or allowing me for that makes sense to me, guidelines, but it's just like the regulations. I wasn't here for the first NOFA, the first set NOFA, so I'm not familiar with like, if this body gets to see, discuss, have any say in terms like the regulations and changes, like when new regulations are, you know, recommended by you all, and then what that process looks like with this body. So that's my first question. And the second question that I have is on the alternative models. Can you just explain the change from 60 to 57 years on the loan terms?
Yes, the 57 years is better aligned with the development time. So it contemplates a 55-year regulatory agreement, which is typical, plus the 2 years for the construction time. So we think that is better aligned with the practice of a 55-year covenant after the project goes live.
As opposed to 60 years, having 3 years of availability.
That's right.
Let me add a comment that most affordable housing restrictions run for 57 years. So having a program that's housing line creates a lot of legal headaches for folks.
Really quick, just on the regulations piece, is there an answer to that?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Apologies. Hi, everyone. So the guidelines contemplate that the department presents to the COC the proposed loan limits. Each time we prepare the NOFA regulations. So that would be an opportunity to provide an update to the committee on the proposed limits for all of the programs, including the operating assistance program that we're discussing.
Is the policy review committee, ad hoc committee, considering changes to the guidelines outside of LAHSA?
I can only speak for myself. I have not really considered it. My understanding as well as that, and both from LHD and from others, is that LHD is also engaged with the community regarding what would be useful as far as kind of learning really from that first note. I mean, we even heard in public comment, I will say, from community of friends that they're excited about the changes because it does better align, and they're wishing that we could do those retroactively. So no, I personally have not. I can't speak for the others on the committee who I don't think are present.
And if so, I mean, at this point, I guess there's been some conversation in the past about possible changes or, you know, or simply the variable scoring. For example, one question, one concern I've had is in terms of equity. It was a distribution of supporting grants across the city of Los Angeles. Some provision to in the scoring to speak to that. Is that something that, you know, do I voice it now? Is it something I need to transmit to committee? Is it something I need to voice to LHD? How would I pursue that agenda?
I think all three would be great. I think all three.
Maybe point of clarification, so this is, you're talking about broad outcomes for this first round of awards, or was that specifically about operating assistance?
No, I'm not going to specific operating system, across all programs.
Okay, so some of the work that's happening on background on that specifically is the program evaluation. Is working on the solicitation to hire an independent evaluator to take all of the data that LH has already collected and do exactly that analysis in terms of what were the outcomes, what were the distributions for geography, segregated by demographics. So that is the right now.
No, and a part of that committee conversation, I remember that, yes, I agree with that.
And in addition to, I believe that this upcoming term, we're gonna have a report back on each of the programs. So that way the public can have an understanding of that. But that also, as opposed to us having 6 meetings, there are going to be more on your agenda. Just so we can get that done.
Okay.
And I guess maybe just to clarify the point here is that the program amendment ad hoc recommends that the full committee approve these
Correct.
adjustments. So I just want to make sure that's that the body's recommendations follows.
Which is my very next. Unless there's any more discussion, and there can be after this, sentence that I move that the COC approves the recommendations of our policy amendment and which one she was or to amend the operating assistance program guidelines and the alternative models, new construction program guidelines, as presented. And I'm gonna give you a blurb on that. For the alternative models, new construction program guidelines, removal of the loan organization requirement and authorization for the Los Angeles Housing Department to structure loans through updated regulations issued as needed prior to each of the NOFA cycle, which is what we just discussed. And then as far as for our operating assistance program, the guidelines removal of prescriptive language governing maximum loan limits, eligible and ineligible costs, and project stabilization pathways, and authorization for LAHD to establish loan sizing, use loan limitations, and project stabilization. I'm looking at my windows here. And standards through NOFA regulations. And as clarification, that can be done twice, since we issue 2 NOFAs per year. So that's the motion.
Also, that concludes the discussion.
Okay, we'll take a second. And is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with that new construction provision. And I'm open to somebody convincing me as to why new construction should be allowed under the operating assistance program. You know, if it's a definitional question, if the idea is that there can be some marginal amount of, you know, additional square footage added to a building, you know, that shouldn't require going through some other process. I would think we would want to describe that in some way, you know, de minimis amount of new construction would be allowed, or a dollar amount or whatever. Otherwise, it just doesn't seem to fit to me, and it leaves me a little uncomfortable.
So noted. Any more discussion? Yes.
It leaves you uncomfortable. Because it doesn't have a firm description that would sound or strike you as arbitrary.
I'm sure it's not arbitrary, but you know, But it's, and, you know, and I trust the department's intent is to use the funds well. But as with all of these programs, you know, we look to what happens when there's a change in administration and all of a sudden there's a rule that creates opportunity for people to do things that we might not agree with, or for a project to be pushed through by certain political parties who have, a strong say in what happens in the city, because some language is there that gives them that permission. So that's why I feel like, that there's something, either there is something else going down here, or maybe this language just needs to be a little tighter.
I wanted to clarify, maybe I didn't make this clearer in the presentation. The statute itself, the Measure ULA, allows for the operating assistance program to fund rental subsidies on new construction projects. It does not state that it can pay for the capital improvements in those new construction projects, but it contemplates structuring the operating assistance as rental subsidies, operating subsidies, and they can pay for new construction projects for their operations. I think that was part of our rationale for not wanting to overinterpret where these guidelines limit the uses. That is commonly an issue that we deal with in our funding sources, where we might have wording that is literal and difficult for us to work around. But in the way that we designed the operating assistance program, it did not end up funding new construction projects, right? We used it as a preservation funding source to help projects that are that have operating gaps. But our wish is to not overinterpret from the way that we did it in the past.
So this change in the language would not allow capital costs of new construction to be funded through the operating assistance program?
No, that's not the intent. The operating assistance program is to bring the president. I would just add to what Andrew said. I think generally what we were trying to do here was remove some of the restrictive language to give us the opportunity to create the policy within the regulations themselves, so that we can have more flexibility.
So reading the language, I mean, this says, the existing language says, funds awarded under the operating assistance program for operating expenses shall not be used for the following capital expenses or activities. And then one of the bullet points is new construction. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any concern about using the operating assistance program to provide operating assistance for new construction projects. I do have a problem with it being used to fund capital costs other than de minimis costs for that. So I guess I would ask for a clarification of that language in some way to make sure we're doing what we want to be doing.
You need an amendment, a motion to make that happen?
So she seconded, yeah.
So I would make that amendment.
Well.
Essentially.
Kelly was gonna answer.
Apologies, I was just going to make a comment, perhaps to address some of the committee's concerns. I was just looking at the language within the measure, and I think maybe a helpful kind of pulling back a little bit, right, of the way that the guidelines and the regs interact with the requirements within the ULA measure. So the ULA measure contains requirements that will always be operative, cannot be superseded by the program guidelines. And within the operating assistance program, right, it does contemplate what the form of assistance shall be. It shall support, it provides long-term operating assistance that supports new construction, acquisition, and or rehabilitation of existing housing. And then it goes on to talk about what that form might be. So that might be in the form of project-based multi-year rental subsidies, operating subsidies, or service subsidies. And then there's some prioritization within there, right? But that's the underlying requirements of the program that live within the measure. And the spirit of the changes as we've been discussing for the guidelines here, and I hear, you know, perhaps there's some further modification that's desired by the committee, but just to provide this kind of pulling back a little bit, was to provide some additional flexibility as we develop the regs and really looking at an understanding of what we're seeing with some of the challenges coming up in the portfolio over time, so that we can be more responsive to the types of needs that we're seeing coming up for projects as we're preparing each round of the NOFA. But yes, I just wanted to provide that maybe a little bit of additional color. Thank you.
And just a follow-up question. In order for us to understand where those funds have gone, there will be reporting. And therefore, if the funds go in not the right direction, then it would come out on the budgets and the reports, correct?
I think like it's possible to do that. Right? Means like it's possible it's no follow we can to go back like how it was before.
In other words, are you saying that if it doesn't work out, we can readjust?
Can you do that?
Yeah.
I would like clarification of the language in my proposal.
Okay.
And with that, I have no concerns about the rest of the proposed amendments.
Okay, City Attorney, would you help me with that motion and the amendment?
I mean, I can probably do. I mean,
So we're amending the motion that's been seconded to include the following amendment.
Clarification. Clarification.
Right, with the clarification that the capital costs of new construction would continue to be prohibited under the operating assistance program, other than, let's call it, de minimis costs.
Is there a motion to include that clarification?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on the clarification.
Yes.
Then we'll vote on the motion that we provide, subject to the addition of the clarification. So right now, we're voting on the clarification.
Clarification?
Must call for by Lewis.
Yes.
It's been seconded. Chair Jones.
Yes.
Member Barca.
Yes.
Committee Member Barragan.
Yes.
Committee Member Lewis.
Yes.
Committee Member Morales.
Yes.
Committee Member Mishimoto absent. Committee Member Romero.
Yes.
Committee Member Rao.
Yes.
Okay, so the clarification of the amendment has been approved. Now we'll vote on the motion. The motion itself. So, is there a motion to approve the motion as amended?
Motion.
Yeah. Second?
Second.
Okay, now we're voting on the motion as amended to include that clarification. Chair Jones.
Yes.
Committee Member Barca.
Yes.
Committee Member Barragan.
Yes.
Committee Member Lewis.
Yes.
Committee Member Morales.
Yes.
Committee Member Mishimoto. Absent. Committee Member Romero.
Yes.
Lead Member Rouse.
Yes.
Motion as amended passes.
Thank you, and that closes item number 10, and due to our time constraints, I am going to use a little bit of my authority here and bypass items number 4 and items number 5 and jump to number 6. All right. Any objections from members? All right. Yeah. Number 6 is a report from the city departments on program implementation, revenues, and expenditures. So thank you, for the Los Angeles Housing Department. I appreciate your time. And your patience with us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Maya Wu, Senior Housing Planning and Economic Analyst. I'll be providing a brief update from LAHD, and I'm also joined by Aaron Strauss, who will provide an update on behalf of the Community Investment. So beginning with our revenue and expenditure updates. To date, ULA has raised over $1.27 billion from 1,756 transactions. In May, which is reflective of April transactions, we had one of our highest months of revenue with nearly 60 million collected from 79 transactions. June receipts were a little lower, significantly lower at just 29 million. And as we discussed, I'm going to run through these a little quickly because I know we're at the end of the day. As we discussed before in prior meetings, we do have the budget to actuals included at the end of the presentation, but to make it more dynamic for all of you, we're not going to run through all of the numbers and instead highlight some of the exciting spending updates, so you can have a better sense of what these dollars are actually doing. And we do that through our spending spotlights, and I'm excited to announce our first one is related to the Emergency Income Support Program. So you'll see in the budget to actuals for the first time, we see this fiscal year expenditures for this program. And I've invited, we've invited Aaron to come and share the latest on that program and let you know how it's going in the timeline. So I'm going to turn it over to him to give the details.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you for having me, members of the Citizen Oversight Committee. I'm Aaron Strauss. I'm a Senior Program Manager with the Community Investment Department. And I have the pleasure of overseeing the day-to-day implementation and administration of the current round of income support program known as the Emergency Income Support Program. This slide also was made a couple of weeks ago in anticipation of the original date for this meeting, so I'm happy to share I have further updates on our progress in rolling out this program. As of today, a total of $7,084,800 has been distributed to a total of 517 households enrolled in the Emergency Income Support Program. That's an average of approximately $13,000 per household. As a reminder, all households have at least one senior or a person with a disability, are all rent burdened, all low income, and did not participate in the previous LAHD administered round of the program. This means that $6.6 million of the program's overall $13.7 million distribution budget is remaining, but progress remains steady. We anticipate serving a total of approximately 975 to 1,000 households when all is said and done. The goal is to expend by the end of August now, but that just depends on how quickly people get back to us with eligibility documents and such. But overall, happy to share we were in a very successful application window in April, and over the last couple of months, we've been kind of finalizing and funding people on a rolling basis. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the numbers I just shared or anything else related to the emergency round of the income support program.
So you mentioned that distribution and awards depends on how quickly people get the necessary documents in. Is there a mechanism by which if they don't submit by a particular time, there's a follow-up to say, you know, this is a reminder to submit your work, and that here's your next deadline?
That's right. So I appreciate that question. The application itself closed on April 30th, and we have contracted with an administrative partner named Forward Platform, both host the application and are conducting all of the document and eligibility reviews. A lot of folks, as you might imagine, require some iteration to ensure that the documents they submit basically demonstrate that they meet all of the eligibility criteria. So Forward is in touch with them via text, email, and phone call constantly, reminding them what they need to submit. Hey, your proof of lease didn't have the landlord's name. Your proof of the amount of rent you pay wasn't within the last 90 days, things like that. the odds and ends that we need to have a fully approved case.
Right. Finders and criteria.
Exactly, so it's constant iteration with applicants to give them every chance to join the program. Only recently have we given harder deadlines, like if we don't hear back from you at all by X date, you may lose your spot in the program because we want to spend expeditiously and bring more people into the program who are eligible and responsive. Right. But everyone has many chances to get back in touch and iterate with the application reviewers in order to ensure that they have a fully eligible application, and then they'll move forward in the process if they're in the higher tiers of prioritization.
Thank you.
Of course. Are there any other questions? All right, well, I hope the next time I see you is when we're fully expended on this round of the program, and I appreciate your time today.
I'm excited, thank you.
Thank you.
And once the program is fully expended, we are looking forward to creating another dashboard to show the demographics, the geographic distribution, all of that kind of data. We're just waiting for it to fully close.
I'm excited again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another spending spotlight since our last meeting, LAHD provided 3.9 million in reimbursement for the eviction defense program. As a reminder, this contract is structured as a reimbursement. And so the services that were performed through March of 2026 were reimbursed during this time period. And that $3.9 million supported 150 full scope legal service cases, nearly 600 limited scope cases, 1 million in rental assistance to households at risk of eviction, and ongoing support and outreach and education. Just a reminder, another plug for our dashboards. These are on our website, and so you can see all of the data and metrics, the geographic distribution, the households that were served, and excitingly, the success rates. We have on the dashboard a 94% of closed legal cases receive a favorable outcome from the tenant. So they closed with a favorable outcome, either the tenant stayed in their home or they received a top. And then a few updates to share. This will be brief. In June, the city approved and executed the capacity building contract. This contract was awarded to Liberty Hill Foundation, which will manage multiple subcontractors that combined are called the LA Housing Training Hub, or Hub for short. As a reminder, the capacity building and outreach services help create resident-led housing models that include tenant engagement, leadership, management, and ownership of housing. And this contract has a 4-year term for up to $14.8 million. So this is our first time executing this contract and standing up the capacity building program. And so we will start to see some spending on this program as we move forward. And another update, our homeownership dashboard is live. So please visit our website and see the homeownership dashboard. It includes the number of households that have been served or that have received loans for homeownership, where those loans are located, the demographics of the home buyers. And I'll say, again, this presentation was made prior and it says 40 households were served. If you go on there today, it will say 42 loans totaling over $6.2 million. So that dashboard is continually updated and you can see our progress even in between our meetings. And that is all we have today. Thank you so much, and we're here for any questions. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
What deliverables with capacity building? What are the deliverables of the capacity building program?
Turn it to Eddie, who's managing that.
Yes, the capacity building contract is intended to support the tenant governance aspects of the ULA social housing projects. So the ULA funding source for alternative models and Prevent Act Rehab, both those programs require tenant governance, which is something that is new and hasn't been done by LAHD before. So we engage a group of contractors to provide trainings, come up with templates for resident agreements, train them on property management principles and how to budget and how to work through conflicts in the properties that they will be co-managing with their property managers.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm excited. Any more comments?
Questions? Should not be related to the presentation. When might we be notified of the emergency meeting with the date?
This is Abigail from the IIG. I will work on that when we are done with this meeting. I'll begin scheduling it. So I don't have an exact date, but I'll go as fast as I can.
Okay, no, I just meant like, so for instance, here, no pressure. Thank you. Me.
No questions. All right. That will conclude our. Yes. All right, so we can move to item number 8. Verbal reports. From our program evaluation ad hoc committee as regarding to TACO. First, I'd like to provide the verbal update status of our TACO questions. Over the past few weeks, several weeks, the program evaluation ad hoc committee has been in discussion with the Los Angeles Housing Department regarding a list of questions that COC had prepared regarding the TACO program. The report is attached to the agenda, and the questions are attached to the agenda. We are pleased to report that LAHD has been a great partner in getting this done for us and answering these questions, and has prepared this document of responses, which is very lengthy, I might add. And all of it is attached to our agenda for the public's view. We are pleased to report that our progress for asking the questions and the questions with LAHD responded was fruitful and collaborative. We look forward to continuing to work with LAHD on future reports. And as a reminder, this report will help to inform the scope of forthcoming program evaluation, which is the committee's review and is designed right along with the housing department. And next, I'd like to provide updates for other 2026 ad hoc committees. First, the policy amendment review and ad hoc committee continues to collaborate with the housing department and our IIG as needed to review all proposed amendments, which we were listening to earlier today. I'm looking forward to doing so and continuing to do so. Next, communications and outreach and education ad hoc has met twice since our last meeting, and they're looking forward to adding Korean language to our multilingual translation and interpretation services for our COC meetings. And we are drafting the COC priorities for our tenant council, which we look forward to sharing with the full COC in the future. Lastly, the governance and ad hoc committee has met to discuss transition to the permanent IIG or the permanent inspector general, and is continuing to support the housing department in its hiring position. And that'll actually close item number 8. Comments? Questions? All right. Okay. So we're going to conclude item number 8. And since we had previously done 9 and 10, we're going to move to item 11, which is future agenda items. Any suggestions? Hearing none. Moving right along. That makes us concluded for item number 11. So therefore we can move to item number 12, which is adjournment. Any objections? No. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. All of you that are here.